By a show of hands, have any of you ever felt awkward when you don't understand a joke? Now, can you imagine going to school your whole life and almost every time someone tells a joke, you being the only one in the class not laughing? Just just like these kids. This kid was somewhat like me. To be able to not make someone with Asperger's syndrome feel so uncomfortable around us, we must be able to understand them a little bit. Just a second. I, in fact, have Asperger's syndrome, and I'm one of the lucky ones with this disorder, as I've learned to be able to relate with and not feel so socially awkward. Asperger's syndrome, or autism spectrum disorder, is one of a group of developmental disorders on the autistic spectrum that is not commonly known about. Asperger's syndrome is a developmental disorder on the autistic spectrum, and to better understand it, we will look at some of its causes, symptoms, and treatments. First, let's go over the causes. There are two types of causes of Asperger's syndrome, which are genetic and environmental. Inherited. There is evidence that Asperger's syndrome tends to run in families or family members who have similar behavioral problems. Environmental. According to MayoClinic.org, researchers are currently exploring whether factors such as viral infections, medications, or complications during pregnancy or air pollutants play a role in triggering autism spectrum disorder. Now that we know some of the causes, let's talk about how we can recognize autism spectrum disorder in someone. There are three types of symptoms associated with Asperger's syndrome. 1. Emotional symptoms, such as an exaggerated emotional response. According to Healthline.com, while not always intentional, adults with AS may struggle to cope with emotional situations, feelings of frustration, or changes in pattern. This may lead to emotional outbursts. Next, communication symptoms, more specifically body language. According to Healthline.com, adults with AS may not pick on nonverbal cues from others, such as hand gestures, facial expressions, and body language. Behavioral symptoms, such as being very sensitive to, having a set routine, according to the Mayo Clinic, develops specific routines or rituals and becomes disturbed at the slightest change. Finally, is there any way to be cured of this disorder? Asperger's syndrome has a couple of commonly used treatments. However, according to MayoClinic.org, no cure exists for autism spectrum disorder, and there is no one-size-fits-all treatment. According to Healthline.com, cognitive behavioral therapy, which can help to address conditions like anxiety, depression, and other psychological challenges facing someone with Asperger's syndrome. According to WebMD.com, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs, and some medications can help with related symptoms like depression and anxiety. In conclusion, Asperger's syndrome is one of a group of developmental disorders on the autistic spectrum. And Asperger's syndrome is a developmental disorder on the autistic spectrum, and to better understand it, we looked at some of its causes, symptoms, and treatments. Now, when you meet someone who seems socially awkward and doesn't seem to get your jokes, it might give you something to think about before you react negatively to them. Thank you.